Well, most of you will know John Harry Martin Gosden, a champion trainer in the UK. He's won just about everything that is worth winning on the global horse racing stage. But while we know he's a brilliant racehorse trainer, we don't know everything about him. And John, we catch up with you here at Santa Anita Park and at a most appropriate place. Tell us about these boxes behind us.
Well, those three stalls, they call them here, for the horses, 1, 2, 3, is where I actually started training here in October 1978. So that's a cool 43 years ago, wow. 45 years ago, whatever, it's 45. Yeah. It's a long time, a long journey since then, but started here. Great place to start for a young person because you've no overhead. You come here, all you do is feed your horses, pay your guide riding, and I was doing the hot walking myself, a bit of the grooming, and you can start here with the cost of setting up in a lot of other places not good. I've always suggested this, should always have places like this in Europe where someone could train on the track.
I'm fascinated in why you started in America, but I'm going to get to that in a minute because we always hear, John Gosden started in America. We don't know why you began here. But I want to turn the clock back before that to your father because he was a horseman, but he ended up in the war and so wasn't always in the horsey business because of that. Can you tell us about that time?
Well, he was quite tall, 6'2", with a quite fine bone. He was a good amateur rider, and then he was, before the war, jumps trainer. He did that through the late 20s, 30s, and then the war came, and they actually ploughed up the gallops, and they took, some of the horses got turned out, and others went to meet. I mean, it was desperate time, and in the country, and they ploughed up the gallops to plant crops. We were going into a really difficult time. He was in the RAF, he was invalided out, and then he started training again after the war with a mixed stable. And ill health got in his way in the end. He had a bad heart and he died in 1967. He was only 62, but his career was, a lot of people's lives were changed by the war. There's no doubt about that.
So in your younger days, when you started off, when you went to Cambridge, for instance, were you always going to be in horse racing at that stage?
No, but I used to get on my motorbike when I was at Cambridge and go over to Newmarket. I mean, my father retired when I was 16, so I'd gone away from it. And I go over there and go to the sales, watch the horses be selling, that kind of thing. Just always had an interest. Probably had a copy of the racing paper called The Sporting Life often in my back pocket. So you'd say the germ or the gene, whichever way you look at it, was there.
And you were sporty. I mean, it wasn't just normal sports either. Discus, javelin. I mean, you could do stuff. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was, I got into Cambridge. Luckily, I got into a college where they liked sportsmen. So we had Gerald Davis in the college, the great rugby player. So when we played rugby with him, I was second row, was get the ball to Gerald. Then we had Majid Khan in the college as well, who was captain of cricket for Pakistan. And so the other thing was put him in number 4, and then he knocked around, and we'd have to literally take him off. So we had a strong college, and I did a bit of rowing as well. And then athletics, I represented the university in discus and javelin. So look, it was a lot of fabulous sports people around, as there are now, and I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than just being a bit sporty, though. I mean, you were good. You were proper.
Well, I was useful at it. I had the build and the strength. But I mean, when you see the quality of these rugby players, for instance, now, and the size and the speed of them, we've just seen them in the World Cup. I wouldn't have lasted 5 seconds with them.
So I asked Rachel Hood, your other half, about you, and I didn't expect what she said to me. She used words like, he's an extraordinary man. She says, he's honourable, he's decent, he's the most fabulous person I've ever met. When I say I didn't expect to say that about you, what I mean is, like, she was glowing about you. Tell us about how you met Rachel at university.
Well, I was in my last year and we met each other, and I like a lot of chats. I thought she was fantastic, but immediately I was very nervous and probably said a couple of inappropriate things, just nerves, and she luckily had a little more common sense to me in that way, and we met in June '73, and we've been together ever since. So it was one of those lucky moments for me, I must say. What she said about me, I can't be true, but she's wonderful. She was a barrister. She's doing law, a barrister, and then the reason that I came here, and you sort of asked about it earlier, is that she was always in London being a barrister, and I was always in Newmarket or in Ireland or something, so we couldn't be together. They won't let you train horses in Hyde Park in the middle of London. They do here, let you train in the city. So she came here, qualified as a California lawyer, and we could be together. We had a place just down the road in Pasadena initially, and then up in the Hollywood Hills. And so I could commute to here and Hollywood Park, which is now a football stadium, and I could do my job and she'd do hers. So that's the reason we actually came to California.
I mean, she's a feisty lady. There's a reason why she's not Rachel Gosden, because in her words, she's a militant feminist. Did you know straight away that you were going to face, some...
No, it's called respect, isn't it? I think a lot of those difficult battles for women have been won, and there are more obviously to come. But in my viewpoint, it was, women in a sense were regarded as second-class citizens for a very long time in many countries. In some countries now, don't get me on Afghanistan or other countries and what happened. So I think from that viewpoint, she was correct in everything she said. I was fully supportive.
Man with horses, but behind the scenes you're clearly a good father, a good dad, a good husband. Like there's a different Gosden out there. When I say different, you're a nice man like this, but
I don't really recognize this person you're talking about. I would love to meet him one day. No, I think it's the old story. You try to have a rounded life. It's rather like Henry James said once. He said there are three important things in life. The first is to be kind, the second is to be kind, and the third is to be kind. And that's, if you go through life trying not to trample people around, just try and work with people. I feel happy doing that, and even in the stables we have, it's rather like here, everything's Christian name terms. I mean, it always has been, and the informal Californian way certainly suited me. No, and I feel you just take people as they are, and they're doing their best, you do your best. And that's why it's not complicated. I find in competition, yes, we all want to win races, of course we can, but it's, you don't win every day. If you win 25% of your races, you've done exceptionally well. But remember, you're being beaten 3/4 of the time. So you have to learn to take the punches as well as try and land them.
I feel we notice that kindness by the fact you're talking to us like this so openly. So you're in America partly because of Rachel, partly for other reasons. Again, setting up as a trainer, how easy was that? And it was something you were definitely going to do.
Yeah, I've been lucky to work with fantastic Sir Noel Merlis, who then retired in '76, and with Vincent O'Brien, and he sent me over here with some horses to sell, unfortunately not to train, and we sold those at the Hollywood Park sales. They were horses in training then. And then I thought, no, I'd like to stay here. I managed to get a green card through a very nice man who'd owned a horse called J.O. Tobin. He didn't have any horses with me because he wanted me to work on his ranch up near Fresno, but it was about 20 miles to the nearest traffic lights, and I thought I might get rather lost there. So I came here and I hot walked for a guy called Tommy Doyle, and then I got 3 horses, and interestingly enough, they were owned by a man called Herbert Allen, and one didn't have the best of knees. One had another leg problem, and the other one had the worst problem of all. It didn't try, but we managed to win one. Steve Coulton rode it, my first winner here. And it's like anything, we got 3 horses and we got to 6, and it sort of stuck. And then I got asked to go and look at a horse that no one wanted, and he was in Carolinas. So I got back at the bus, got there, flew in, and I went out, and there was this huge horse cantering around. It was owned by Jackie Getty, and big fella, flop ears, 2-year-old with blinkers on. And the guy who had broken him in and pre-training him said, "This is a big lout of a horse, but I think there's something about him." And that man was Lucien Lauren, and he'd retired, trained secretariat. And he said something about him. He said they didn't want him in England. Henry Cecil didn't want him. He was by Sir Ivory. He went up to sales with no bids. I think they brought him home for 20,000 or something. So he said, "You're going to take him, boy." And I said, "Sir, I got 5 horses. I would definitely take him." And he came here, and this extraordinary thing, he was a big laid bloke, and I worked him on Christmas Eve, and he breezed 36 and changed 3/8 here on the track, and I thought, I'm finally seeing something. He became a decent enough, took about 10 runs to break his maiden. He was a lout. He liked to lay on the rail and take the boots off the jockeys. A number of jockeys said, every time I ride this horse, I have to buy, all right, you buy the boots before the race. But we sorted him out. Chris McCarron rode him, Terry Lippen rode him. And in the end, he won the San Antonio. He won the Santa Anita Handicap, the big race here. Crowd of those days, 83,000 people here for the big cap at the end of March. And he went on to be the Eclipse Award-winning champion older horse. And when you get the breakthrough horse, and he was my breakthrough horse, if you like, other people come. And we went from 6 to 16 to 36 to 60 horses in no time at all. It's amazing. But until you get if you don't get that break, sometimes you can get stuck, and that happens to a lot of trainers.
I've been interesting to hear you say that there were times in your early part of your career when you had no money, effectively. And I think we talk to you now and we just think, this is a rich trainer. He's won everything. He's got bundles of cash. But
I still don't know this guy.
This is a whole new experience, this interview. But there was a time when paying bills wasn't that easy as a racehorse trainer.
No.
I mean, it sounded like, I mean, obviously your family went racing, good family, etc. But it sounds like you weren't born into millions of pounds.
No, look, I was very lucky. I went to university on a grant. The county council paid for all of the fees. You know, that's something now we have students having to pay for their own education, which I think is wrong, but that's another matter. So I was lucky that I got a grant. A lot of us got grants in those days. And coming here, I couldn't afford to set up I couldn't buy a place to set up training there. I didn't want to rent something but I could come here and have no overhead and run for very good prize money. And it was a great place for a young person to build a business.
So are you the kind of fella now, do you ever sit back in whatever plush office you have and just put your feet up and think to yourself, you know what, Gozza, you've made it?
No, I think you've got to stay quick on your feet, you know. My office, if you must come to it, is very small. There's Thady and myself, two desks, racing office manager, my son, our son Thady, So we're in a desk, racing office manager there, assistant trainer there, and we are squashed in a tiny space. And everything horses discuss. I keep it small. It's the opposite of a grand office. You would be quite shocked. But I like that. I like the intimacy. The old tack rooms here at the end. That's where we used to sit down just in these little rooms here, work out where we're running, got the charts on the horses, what's going there. That one's going to New York. That one might go and race in Florida. This one, he's going over to Turf Paradise, and see the vans leaving here, taking him over to Phoenix, Arizona to run there and try and pick up some cheap black type for a filly. We were up to all of those things. But I've always believed in a very small office. If anyone starts sending me emails and they're only about 50 feet away, I can't stand that.
We know with racehorses, routine is everything. Are you a routine man? I mean, if your eggs don't arrive sunny side up in the morning at 10 a.m., are you miserable?
Look, I think I probably, like a lot of people, got some OCD.
Tell us, come on, what's the worst
you
OCD?
Like things in order, but if you take it and turn it to a positive, you try and keep things structured.
What would annoy you, John, the most? What just irritates you? And it can be
when people don't turn up in the morning on time and the horses are ready to go and there's a rider missing, that annoys me. Yeah, it's a simple things like that. But horses, do enjoy a routine. Already these horses coming out of quarantine, they're beginning to learn this is a different place, different routine. We've got the pony there, all right, we went to the track. They're up for it, they're getting the routine. Don't want to change it every day. Horses do like a certain consistency. But that doesn't mean you don't think outside the box. Everything can't be narrow. And when you're training a horse, probably the most important thing is to know when to back off them rather than keep going forward. But that's another issue.
Does John Gosden sit back in an evening and watch, a TV series?
No.
Have you ever watched
in lockdown I did. There was one called, was it the French one, Le Bureau, which was thoroughly entertaining. Lockdown is the only time I've ever watched a series of anything.
So in UK we have EastEnders.
Gerard Depardieu called Marseille or something.
Marseille.
The two French ones I watched, they were quite entertaining. But I don't do that, no.
But
I prefer to read.
You're already sounding on a higher plane. But in the UK, obviously, we have EastEnders and Coronation Street. John Gosden ever sat through an episode of either?
No.
Okay. If you went to the cinema, horror, romantic, comedy, action, what kind of film would grab you?
More romantic, comedy. And I like, serious. I mean, films based in Los Angeles, to me, the greatest films are Los Angeles. Citizen Kane.
Okay.
Yeah. I enjoyed all the Raymond Chandler ones, obviously, Bogart as Marlowe. I would do Chinatown. It's a superb film here. based here, all about, it's a great film to see, and probably the first Blade Runner, which is a futuristic concept. I like films like that.
Okay.
There's a great gravitas about them and taking a slightly different angle, yes. So I'm just using examples of famous films about Los Angeles.
So I'm feeling then, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you'd be more opera than house music?
I go to the opera a lot. Rachel and I spend a lot of time at the opera. It's one of my great passions. Our passion. We go a lot, yeah. I mean, I saw Das Rheingold the other day, first night of Das Rheingold. If you can take 6 hours of Wagner, you can take anything.
Right.
But no, we went to, luckily, Mrs. Thompson, who ends in Spiral, said, would you invited us to Venice? I hadn't been to Venice for 25 years, and she bought tickets for the Fenice, for a wonderful production of Traviata.
Wow.
And afterwards we were eating with a friend of ours out in the piazza, and the cast came out, 3 amazingly famous, great international Italian soprano, mezzo-soprano, the baritone and the tenor. If you have a moment, probably one of the greatest art museums in the world is the Norton Simon, just down the road here. It's closed today, but it's open tomorrow. Okay. Some of the greatest collection put together ever seen, and it's just there in Pasadena. But the Getty's quite overwhelming. There's a lot there. Yeah. And the Huntington, where the hotel that everyone using for racing is, that's where the famous Gainsborough pictures, Blue Boy, hung there for years in the Huntington Library. So look. Yeah, I love pictures and I love opera, yes. You've got to have other interests in life.
Well, this is what we're trying to find out. If you had a choice of La Traviata or Don Giovanni, which do you go to?
Don Giovanni might be the most the greatest opera in many ways written, because it has the most wonderful arias, but also great duets, quartets. It has probably the finest overture ever put down. They say you put it down the night before Mozart, to be in his head forever. It's a fabulous opera, but then I'm a Bob Dylan freak, and his Neil Young, Mark Knopfler, John Lennon. That's probably my generation.
Can you hold a tune? Would you ever sing along in the car?
No, I sing along to myself. I don't want anyone recording it. No.
And as far as holiday destinations away from this, if you were to relax, would you be a beach baby, or would you want to be skiing down a mountain?
You can see from the state of my face, I made a big mistake in California. The 11 years here, I never wore a hat and I never put on sunscreen. And I'm like those old Australian cricketers. The sun takes its revenge. So no, I'm not. I like beaches, but I'll sit at the shade.
Right. I can see you skiing.
Skiing, I love skiing. Yeah. The knees are not what they were. I love skiing. I never did ski. Rachel always did, and I didn't go till I was 36. It was terribly funny that she said one day, when the kids were very little, 2 and 3, and she said, I'm taking them skiing up here, up in Utah. I said, good luck. So I said, tell Bill Shoemaker, the great jockey, I said, Rachel's take them skiing. Yeah, then we're going to stay, Chris McCarran's got a house up there, the house that John Henry built. I said, that's great. You going, John? I said, no, I'm not. I'm too busy here. He said, John, you better go. Those ski instructors, they're dangerous. Typical Bill Shoemaker.
And I must, in changing tack completely, if the worst case scenario came along that I was coming to dinner and everyone else was out, and you said, I'll rustle up something for you, what would be your go-to dish to prepare for me?
I like pasta.
Right.
Yeah. First of all, I think sometimes I can get it right, and I just love pasta. It's such a relaxed.
We have some ham and chicken in there?
Oh yeah, all that kind of thing. But not too. No, I wouldn't muddle it up too much. I get a recipe. I probably might make the great mistake, keep it in there too long, and it wouldn't be perfect al dente, and everyone say no. But I probably, if it's the old last meal, pasta would do me fine.
Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Actually, I must just ask you one thing, because it's something you talked about a lot. But Frankie Dettori has been such a part of your life. Underneath it all, are you going to really miss him or not?
Oh yeah, very much so. That gate right there, you come in, the back gate, isn't it? When he was young, and he was over here in the winters, he was lying on the back seat of the car, hidden. He wasn't allowed to come in. He didn't have a CHRB license. He wasn't allowed to ride. And he'd come in, hustle around and ride, hang around the jocks room, drove them all crazy. But he learned a lot. And that's when that style of his was perfected here in those winters. And no, he's out riding us this morning. I've always said, pound per pound, the greatest jockey I've ever put on a horse. And of course one will miss him, but he has a habit of popping up. And I'm sure after we're here, the next time he'll be riding for us, hopefully he'll be in the Middle East. I'm sure he'll be riding there in the winter, coming over with the top American jocks. I think it suits him being here this time of his career. I think it does. It's not too much, and all that travelling's ruled out for him. If you go anyway, he has to fly down to Florida. That's not a hardship. But in Europe, you're having to drive to all these tracks. He did all that. He was first 3 years for me, champion jockey, 3 years running, 230 winners a year, phenomenal work ethic. Then I said, that's enough of that now. Just be more selective.
Well, John, I think it's fair to say that wherever you're watching this all around the world, you'll have learned a little bit more about John Harry Martin Gosden. And just remember, you turn up on time, you then get a delicious pasta for lunch, you can sit back and enjoy Don Giovanni throughout the evening. John Gosden.